Welcome to the dungeon with Harlan and Andrew.
Hi, hello. Here we are on another episode of the dungeon. Sorry we're running a little bit late here.
It's my fault.
It's Andrew's fault. Please make fun of him.
100% my fault.
But
I thought it was 4:30. No big deal.
okay, I see how it is.
Oh,
what a gift you have to be able to forget what time it is. I'm Harlan Kelly.
I'm Andrew Overdahl.
And today, like every week on the dungeon, we have a guest with us. But just this week, we have LB, the GM of many games and a very prolific streamer. So thank you so much for coming to hang out with us and talk about running games.
Hello, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. Well, we're very excited to have you. I almost went straight into what I want to talk to you about Monster of the Week right away, but we have a tradition that we have to stick to.
Yeah,
so.
we have a first question we usually ask, and that's just, what is your history with tabletop role-playing games? Like your personal history with them.
Yeah, so my started, my older brother's 2 years older than me. He was like the nerdy one out of the two of us. I was more of like the flower child. And he played D&D with all of his friends, and I was the tag-along little sister, and I got really into it. I read the whole rule book, and this was 3.5. I read the whole rule book. We started some characters. I played a couple of times with him, and then once I got to college, I really had the itch to play again.
Ooh.
And I had a history class, and when one of my soon-to-be friends was sitting outside of it, and they were drawing a map, and just out of curiosity, I was like, so hey, what's that for? And he was like, I run a D&D campaign. I'm like, really? Do you need players? And
Hell
that's
yeah.
how I got back into it.
I love that soon-to-be friends. You're just like,
Yeah.
you see the map.
I'm very much that person that's like, you're cool, we're friends now. Like,
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
but streaming was kind of this weird, like, TTRPGs online. I worked in an office. We had an office dog. There was also an office dog in the office below us, and they would get together and play. That dog's owner was talking to me about grooming. I went to groom their dog at their house. She told me her husband was really into D&D because we got talking about it and Critical Role and stuff. Met him. He streamed games online. I was like, oh yeah, no, I'd try it. Played in a game with him. Met a couple of my really good friends now, and he started. I kind of convinced Indoor Adventure. Well, partially convinced him. He to run a D&D game online. Started playing with him. Lucian was the original one. He knows Jordan with a PH. So I met him through that at Gen Con last year. Jordan knows Ted from Nerd Immersion, and that's kind of how everything blew up.
That's a good D&D campaign of a web of friendships right there.
Yeah.
That sounds right. Yeah.
I tried to simplify it as much as possible.
No, I mean, that sounds like that has about as many NPCs as the game that I run does. So
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's so fun because I feel like I hear that and I just immediately, in the same way that you can like feel that like little flicker of friendship, like start and then just latch on with D&D is so cool.
Exactly.
That's how Andrew and I did not know each other at all before we started playing D&D together. And now I think I've hung out with you more than anyone else besides my wife in the last year. So
Yeah, I guess
you're stuck
remotely,
with me.
right?
Yeah.
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 This counts as hanging out, Andrew. We're all, the three of us are hanging out together.
That's
Yeah,
true. That's
absolutely.
true.
Yeah, so that's cool. I mean, I just love that because it's so clear that you are doing the work, like that little like DM friend work that's like making sure all the people are connected and like connecting them together and having a good time together, and that's super cool. Yeah. So you run. I finally get to do it. I get to talk about it. You run a Monster of the Week campaign. I love talking about D&D, but I feel like it's my Monster of the Week is my new crush. I want to like work up to running it so bad. I want to run it so bad, and I just haven't yet.
Yeah.
So I guess my question is, what do you have any advice for me as I'm like trying to jump from one to the other? I've read the rules and stuff. Like, what's your feeling of jumping from one game to another?
I think the hardest part, especially with Monster of the Week is a mystery-based game. So you, as the keeper, you are the narrator, and there are times when people roll, like there is a roll to say to investigate a mystery. If they're rolling this at the beginning of the game and they roll super well on it, and they ask the question, what kind of monster is it? You as the DM or the keeper can't just come out and say, oh yeah, no, it's a lake spirit, like, because that, one, isn't very compelling, and two, it pushes the mystery too far. So there is that like trickle of evidence and clues. It's very different from D&D in the sense that, like, when you're creating the monster, I think a lot of it has to do with like, what is their goal and what can they do? So like when I created the lake spirit, I thought of 3 things that they could do. They can control water, they can create water, and then they can do like a splash, something physical with it. So it's not like they have like 15 different things they can do and they have ACs and stuff like that. Also, as the keeper, you never roll in Monster of the Week or all of the Powered by the Apocalypse games. So
okay.
Yeah, if you're attacking, you have to have the players roll to see how well they either dodge it or take it or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. So like doing just a regular like physical attack, they'll roll one thing, but if you're like the create water, I could create the water in their lungs and they have to roll something completely different from that to like stop themselves. And also the success system is very, there's usually 3 things. It's either you fail, something bad happens, you succeed, but something bad also happens. So it's kind of like a give and take. That's like, you roll 7 to 9. Yeah. And then if you succeed, sometimes you get something special, or sometimes you just do it with like nothing bad happening. Like if you're attacking as the player, you both like, and you get like the normal 7 to 9, like you succeed at the roll, you still do damage to each other.
Yeah.
But if you succeed with like a 10 or above, you can negate 1 damage or whatever it is.
Yeah, do you find this like flexible style of game mastering that's like much more wide open and much more give and take? Do you find that easier or harder?
I do, because I'm the kind of DM that likes to kind of not make it up on the spot, but improvise with it. Like in Monster of the Week, I feel like a lot of what you do is based on what your players are going to do. So I say there have been dead bodies found. What are you going to do? Then I basically just create a list of NPCs or even just a list of names.
Yeah.
Because then your players will go, well, I think we should talk to the park rangers. And maybe you didn't think about that, because your players always do something that you aren't expecting, because that's just how players are. So you have to okay, you have to think quickly, like, what does this person know? What are they going to get from them? What are they trying to get from them? So it's kind of that reward system of like, I want this to be fun for my players. I want them to feel like they're doing something good, even though it's something that I haven't thought about. But I want to make sure that they're getting rewarded for it because they've thought out of the box.
Yeah.
So it's very skeletal, because I ran Descent into Avernus off stream before.
Nice.
I started to. I hated it.
Oh,
I hated running a module because I had to memorize everything, and I felt like I was chained to it. So I was like, that's just, I much prefer having the option to like, you know what? Yeah, you could stab a lake monster with a sword that is on fire. That makes sense. Yeah, roll for it.
Yeah, I mean, I love Avernus. I've never run it, and I don't think I ever would, because it just I feel like I steal things from it all the time. But you're right. Like I just feel like I'm the same way with like Andrew, you ran a module recently too. Like you were running one of the newer ones,
Icewind
right?
Dale.
Yeah.
It's so hard.
I remember you talking about that same thing.
There's like 10 different towns that you have to know, and the players can go to them in any order they want. So it's like, like you said, it's just overwhelming to be flipping through a book, and it's definitely not as fun as just like knowing it because you came up with it.
Yeah.
And
I can talk to Celeste. I'm gonna see her later tonight and tell her that you had trouble with it. She helped write it, so.
No big deal. No, it's fun. We're still playing it, but it's just so different for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's. I mean, that's cool because like the way you were talking about the game system, though, I think. Like I want to run D&D like that, you know,
Yeah.
but it's cool to hear that you feel like the mechanics are teaching you, and you as a game master are just like really valuing and enjoy valuing what the players are contributing and doing, because it's intimidating to do, like as much as you want to tell people stories, it's hard to do sometimes.
Yeah, and I think there is one thing that I've learned playing in Monster of the Week and Powered by the Apocalypse system, but also running it. You don't always have to say yes to your players. If they do something stupid, they're not going to get something from it. Like, we're going to have a barbecue. Let's go talk to our neighbors and see if they know anything about this. It's like, they're not going to know anything because they're just plebs. Maybe they have like the lore of the town, but like sometimes it's like, guys, you cannot build this thing, build a catapult and do this. How would you know how to do that?
Yeah. No, I mean, like, so I mean, man, that's such a good example. I feel like I struggle with that a lot when I'm writing things, or even when players are just like latched onto something that I'm not thinking about. And like I think that's always like you can improvise and like make it that. But do you have any ways to like get at, like, I guess, like, how do you handle that when the players are really wanting to be at that barbecue?
Yeah, and I think there are ways to, like, again, reward them for ingenuitive thinking, or like thinking outside of what you have, because obviously you can't think of every contingency. That you can give them something, but it might not necessarily be like, if they're investigating a mystery and they're at the library looking at old newspapers, they're not going to necessarily find out what's going on right now. They will have like rumors or something that they can extrapolate from the past. Like what I did was, he went and looked at old newspapers from when the town was built, because I made a point to say, like, nobody has built around the lake, which is very rare because people love to live on the lake.
Yeah.
And so, like, the first article they saw was like, oh, we're putting the mill, people are building homes. And then like 2 weeks later, there was an article about a big flood happening, and like the groundwater was too bad, like they couldn't build on the land, and like there were all these rumors of like people disappearing, so they just kind of scrapped it, made it into a nature preserve, and went from there. So
wow,
they get the idea of like something was happening here when this happened. So people were building there and then they were wiped out. Why was that? Like, what, they were polluting into the lake. Maybe with the other clues that they have, they can extrapolate that maybe something was protecting the area, or this is its territory and they don't want other people there, that sort of thing.
Man, that's such good jamming, though. I think it's just like thinking about how, like, because you're both saying no, you're not just like giving them the thing, but you are like opening the door for what they're doing to still benefit them in some way. That's awesome.
Exactly.
I've never played Monster of the Week. Is it just one shots, or is it like an ongoing?
No, I'm actually in a campaign right now that we've been playing for almost 2 years. So the leveling up system is the only thing that is sort of stopping it from, I think, being amazing. But so you get, every time you fail, you get experience. And then at the end of a session, you get experience if you answer questions like, did we solve the mystery? Did we save someone from getting killed? Did we learn something? And you get experience for that. Once you get 5 experience, you can level up in a way, whereas basically like you get +1 to your stat, or you get to pick up a new move from your book. And then once you get 5 of those advancements, you get like the bigger advancements, which are like, you can retire your character and create a new character, or you can get a haven or something like that. So but once you, like, I'm playing 2 characters, each mystery, and like it doesn't get stale because each mystery is its own little, like, it could be a one shot, it could take up to 3 episodes or 5 episodes, or however complex it is. So it's like Supernatural, like that went on for like 15 seasons or something like that. It's very similar to that, so that it's not stale. But you do reach a point when you have 2 characters and you've got all 5 advancements on both of them, and you're like, well, do I create another character and add them to this, or what else can I do?
Their
you can
dead
switch
twin
playbooks.
brother. Yeah.
Exactly.
And you play them in the same game, or you just take turns playing them in different sessions?
Yeah, what our GM has suggested in that game, Savvy, she has us, once the mystery starts, you pick one of your characters. So
you have like a toolbox, a team like that you can play from. That's awesome.
Yeah. And that comes because other people have different characters too. You get the weird, like, these 4 people are together that have never been together before. Usually like one of the main or one of the originals is with them, and it was all like the B cast, and I was like, this is so weird.
I love that though, because that's like why I love X-Men, right? Is because there's just this infinite ensemble, and they all have these different relationships that are like, it's a different show every time a different crew is like interacting for whatever reason. That's awesome.
But running it as a one shot versus like doing like for the one that I just ran, it was 3 episodes. You have to and I've done one shots with Monster of the Week before. The trickle of information has to be faster or slower depending on what it is, and you can add like side quest sort of things in there to make it last a little bit longer, or character moments with this person is going to go off and do their own thing and deal with their parents, or deal with their sect, or they're monstrous and they have to deal with the other werewolves in town, or whatever it is. So
that's awesome.
It's very versatile. I love that.
Yeah, it just feels like these are all the TV shows I love, and I think that's like, just in even hearing you talk about it, it's not just like you can be like doing a werewolf campaign or whatever, like doing all these things. It feels like it's such a Swiss Army knife for players who want different things to the table too, and allows a GM to really provide for that. So that's cool.
Yeah.
I want to be sure and talk about, because you are going to start streaming a D&D game soon. In March, right? It's the first Sunday of March is when you're going to start this?
Yeah.
And you're doing a homebrew game, right?
Yeah, homebrew-ish. It's based on the Sword Coast, but they will eventually, and none of my girls are watching this, it's an all-girl group, 3 of which have only played in a game with me before, back when I was living on the other side of the state, and they've never streamed, so that'll be fun. And then but as far as like homebrew stuff, I've taken the lore from my other D&D games that I've been in and had characters in, and I'm like changing gods a little bit. There was an event that happened 50 years ago that they'll have to deal with the repercussions of that, and I came up with a few like homebrew stuff. Like for me, I don't like health potions and how they work, so I love health potions, don't get me wrong there, but I want them to feel like something, because if you do a normal health potion, you roll a 1, it's what you can get 5 healing. That's super not helpful when you're in a battle. So I say health potions are max every time you drink one.
Wow.
Yeah, which I prefer.
You don't get that injury.
And drinking one is a bonus action. I have lip reading and Sword Coast Sign Language as languages that you can take.
That's awesome.
Yeah, when you roll a 1 in combat, if you're like attacking and you roll a 1, this is something that one of my old DMs did. You take 1 damage yourself, so you fail in such a way that you like either you slice yourself or you drop it, or something happens when you fail. That's not like super detrimental in the moment, but it's just kind of, I think it makes it funny a little bit.
Yeah, for sure, it does.
And
I don't want to ever be punitive, but it is a good time to like.
Yeah.
I usually make the players describe it too, because it's like it's an out of game meta text too, where you're like, no, you have to do this scene. You tell me what happened. Yeah. But this crew has only really played with you, is that right? Like mostly played D&D with you as the GM.
A few of them have. One of them was my college roommate. She plays a ton of D&D now, and then the other one is actually my girlfriend, and she is no special treatment for partners on my stream. But she has her own channel, GGK, and she runs a bunch of games
cool.
for that channel, so she knows what she's doing. The other the other 3 are pretty new, but they did play probably for 6 months with me before.
So this is a thing we've talked about because I think it's one of the kind of like one of the questions on our roll table, or was last year one of the questions on our roll table, about like different players at the table having different expectations of what the game looks like, especially with like these are, I mean, all those homebrew rules. I'm like, yeah, those make a lot of sense. But I've just when I do things differently in my games too in ways that make sense. Sometimes players will be like, well, it's actually, rules as written.
Yeah.
Andrew's in the back being like, technically I did die.
At least I didn't realize till after the game was over.
I love that. Camera, no.
Oh, no.
Acknowledge.
Oh, no.
Acknowledge.
I'll come back. Keep talking. Just talk about it.
No,
I'll be
dear
back
God,
at this.
dear God,
I am very firm in my stance as a DM that like I'm about everyone having fun, and I most likely will follow rules as written. But if something comes up and it doesn't make sense, or it's not going to be fun, I am totally the person that will just go, no, I'm the DM. That's not how it's going to happen. Or yes, I'm the DM.
Yeah.
They get away. Like,
Yeah.
as long as it's not like, as long as everyone's still having fun, it's not getting in the way of anything. I haven't had any issues with that. But I tend to be one of the people that's just like, no, move on. Like,
Yeah.
we'll drop it and move forward.
Yeah, but that's a good practice. That's a good practice because your players trust you inside of that.
Yeah.
Like they want you to kind of like they want to be able to push against the wall, so when it doesn't work, that they're like, oh, okay, yeah. I feel like.
And if there's any issues, I'm a very open person. Like, talk to me after the game, or talk to me, like send me a message. I will, if it's something that you feel is very egregious or whatever it is, talk to me about it. I am not an asshole. I will deal with it.
Yeah. I know. I mean, that's good. That's good. It's hard to cultivate that at your table, so it's good that you feel like that's there.
That's awesome. I was looking at your schedule. It looked like, and correct me if I'm wrong, are you streaming? Are you running a game or streaming a game every night?
No.
Oh, okay.
Almost every night, not Saturday nights. No, so Monday night I'm in a D&D game. Tuesday I stream on my own channel. I play video games, and then I'm in a tabletop. We switch games every week. Wednesday, I was doing the 4x4 game, which is Monster of the Week, which just ended. Thursday, I do Baldur's Gate 3 with Ted, Nerd Immersion, in that group. Friday, I do horror streams on my channel where my friend and I play horror games. Saturday, I don't do anything. Sunday, I do Monster of the Week. I play in that game, and then I'm going to start streaming the D&D on Sunday nights. So I'll have Wednesday and Saturday nights off soon.
That's amazing. We only do one night a week here, and I feel like or I guess 2 with this, but we're we're just hanging out, like running the games. That's very impressive. You are a very impressive person to be able to.
I take a lot of notes most of the time.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you how, like, if you have a secret to that, but it's notes.
Yeah, I absolutely have to. You can't see the bookshelf behind me, but I have one section that's just like every character I play has a different notebook because I have to, because otherwise I won't remember.
Wow.
I absolutely will not.
That's amazing. Nice. That's cool.
We have a question in chat here on something like Monster of the Week. Do different people have different expectations around tone?
Yeah, that's important to talk about especially if you're going to do a long-term thing. I did a one-shot I made sure to come to my players, and I was like, this is a horror-based game.
Yeah. Okay,
the monster's going to be scary. I need to know if anyone has any actual phobias, because it was a Christmas one. The monster had a lot of mouths. And I'm like, that's got to be someone's scary thing. Yeah. And if you describe it well enough, hopefully it makes the players go, oh my God. But if they're not signing up for that, obviously that's not, it's not comfortable to do that. But talk to your players about, like, all right, is this going to be Scooby-Doo? Is this going to be Supernatural, where it's like serious but also lighthearted? Is this Buffy, where it's like world ending every other episode? Or, like in between? What do you want to do? What are you feeling? What do you feel comfortable with? Or are we going just straight like cabin in the woods horror that sort of thing.
Man, that's such a we haven't talked about that on this stream at all, and I haven't really thought about it this much. But that you bring up such a good point about how tone can be like with Buffy, about how the world can be ending like all the time, and how that can feel like not fun to play. Because when I had a in-person game that switched to online with the pandemic, and before it's like they were like, okay, they were new players, they had just kind of figured out what they wanted in D&D, and like, we want like a hard wild thing, we want to do something crazy. And so they went into this like extra planar dungeon, and there was like threats around all the time, and they're having to like manage it. And then when we switched, they were like, like this feels different now, like we kind of want to like we don't want this heaviness. And we did it. We were just like, cool, I'm gonna like, I can narratively just do it, so we do one more fight in here, and then you guys are out of here, and we can do something else. So that's such a wise statement.
Yeah, and I think in D&D there's like a bunch of different players, but like there's the role player, there's the person who loves to crunch numbers, and I know a group of dudes who really just enjoy combat and like maneuvering on a battle mat, and that's perfectly fine. I prefer to role play personally, or like think of my way, like talk my way out of a situation, or like that sort of thing. That's what I prefer, but you have to make sure all your players are on the same page. Otherwise, you're going to have that one person who's like, I came here to role play, and everyone else is like, but the battle's going to take 3 hours. Oh my God.
And you got to, I feel like most of the time, like you're saying too, as long as you explicitly talk about it, people who are down for things will like, they'll be like, oh yeah, we're doing the role play now. This is not my I'm going to do the combat, but we're doing the role play thing now. I'll do the combat turn.
Especially with horror games, where I think tone and atmosphere is even more important. It's like if somebody keeps trying to let the air out by being like, oh, we're gonna go to Applebee's first, it's like, it can kind of it can be tricky to try to I think, you want everybody to feel comfortable, and maybe that's their defense mechanism, is like, I gotta make jokes because I'm stressed. But it's I think that's pretty tricky with horror games. Everybody on board with the scary tone.
Andrew, next time you run a horror game, I'm gonna be a character that just deeply wants to go to Applebee's the whole time. That goes
to chain restaurants. And don't get me wrong, I love the funny stuff that happens in horror games, but it's a tricky one for sure.
It's hard to cultivate tone.
It is.
So we have a roll table of questions. If you want to roll a D20
roll table.
Well, I kind of want to cheat and ask the new question that we just added, but
don't do it, Andrew.
We could do too. I mean,
don't fudge
your
the
channel,
dice.
but I got 11.
11.
11. Oh, okay.
How crazy! It's the new one.
No, it's not. I didn't cheat. Do you have a? I guess this would largely be a D&D question, where there's like fantasy races, not in other games. But is there a race that is generally like the most villainous in your games or campaigns? You like, for example, in my games, I like to make elves villainous and very scheming, and so that's not always the case. I'm not trying to. If you play a game with me, don't think that that an elf is gonna be bad. But elves, I like to make elves villainous.
That's a good question. I honestly usually go for humans.
Yeah.
If I'm gonna make because there's usually a lot of them. If I'm doing a Sword Coast game, and two, they're so easy to like, lower expectations around, because like people are like, oh, a tiefling, they could be evil, they're demoness, or like a dragonborn, they're scary, they breathe fire. But it's like, oh, that's this little old lady who's just trying to help you guys and lead you through the forest. Just kidding, she's gonna eat you. Like,
right.
Yeah.
Right, because then it feels treacherous, right? You're like, you're not from hell. You can't do bad things. You're a person.
Exactly.
Yeah. Do you have a go-to like kind of like evil characteristic for villains that you make, or like, I mean,
intelligent and sexy. that's pretty much it. Like the Lust from Full Metal Alchemist, like totally like that type of villain who's like on the crazy hot scale. They're like high in both of them, but just a little bit over on the crazy scale. That's where I like to keep my villains.
Yeah, nice. Yeah. Connie, who was another guest that we had on the dungeon, they ran a whole couple of videos about why you should make villains hot. And it was funny, but it's also like really insightful about just like constructing villains.
Yeah,
and
that's
how-
a lot of charisma to them. I think my villains are always lacking that. They're not very sexy.
Well,
There you go.
I should take Marv Condi's workshops.
that's your challenge, Andrew. Since
Yeah.
you figured out before we were doing a challenge where we were trying to figure out how to stop doing or like into something we were making. And Andrew, your next one is trying to make a hot
Great.
villain.
Create a hot and sexy villain.
Yeah.
All right.
Cool.
Oh, that'd be funny. All right.
Well, thank you so much for coming to hang out with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, time flies right by.
I know. I feel like we have 6 more games that you stream that we could ask you about. But
Oh boy.
but you all should go watch them instead of just listening to us talk about them. Be sure, and if you're watching this, go follow LB on the socials, on the Twitch. Check out all of the games. We just threw some links in the
Yeah.
chat. If you're watching this on YouTube,
Oh.
they're down here.
we just hit 200 followers on my Twitch.
Woo.
So we're doing a giveaway. Check out my Twitter my Twitter tweets. I'm doing a giveaway. So if you comment on that and follow me, then you're entered. We're giving away stickers and t-shirts
Hell
with
yeah.
our
Nice.
logos on them.
Very
Can I
cool.
enter? Am I allowed to
Yeah,
enter?
absolutely.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm going to do it. That's awesome. So yeah, go check it
That's
out.
very cool.
Do you want to talk about anything else that we haven't like? Do you want to like plug anything else before we take off for people to check
In
out?
about a half an hour, I'll be on Nerd Immersion's channel. We're playing Baldur's Gate 3. They just came out with a new patch, but we're not playing the new patch yet. We're still trucking through the old one.
Fun.
It's me, Celeste, Katie from Venture Maidens, and Ted from Nerd Immersion, and I'm learning not to click on things that I shouldn't because I like to go ahead and trigger cutscenes or fights. So
Yeah.
hands off.
Hey,
Nice.
check for traps. You know.
Yep.
Cool.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, we'll host that here, and yeah, everybody go check it out. And thanks so much for hanging out with us. Thanks
Thanks for being here.
Thanks,
talking
everyone.
to us about games.
My game Kickstarter is in its home stretch. If anybody wants to check out my tabletop role-playing game, I'll put the Kickstarter. There it is in the chat. Just a few more days back. I'm really excited for that. It'll be printed up and shipped out in May. You get to play a stray dog or a cat. And I added a module where you can get superpowers. There's a bunch of tables for different powers you can roll on, so you can be a stray dog with some kind of crazy superpower. So
Yeah.
check
I
that out
love
if you want.
that.
And if you're watching this and you've never checked us out before, we also run a 5e Spelljammer campaign every Monday on Twitch at 7 o'clock Pacific time. And you can check us out there. Come watch me try and eat Andrew's character with the news at some point. So,
Ooh, all right.
all right. That's it, everybody. Thanks for hanging out with us. And don't forget,
Thank you so much. Tip your
keep
DM.
your DMs. All right. See you
Yeah.
later. Bye.
Bye.